Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And guesting with us for this session of Media Watch is longtime friend, colleague, journalist, and author, Anita M. Samuels. Anita, welcome to Media Watch.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, now make sure you speak as loudly as you spoke when we were doing that mic check. Do not be whispering.
Okay.
I'm happy to have, we are definitely happy to have you with us because I want you to talk to us and talk to our viewers about your new book, which just basically rolled off the shelves or rolled onto the shelves 3 weeks ago. Rants and Retorts. Let's pop it up so folks can see the cover. Yeah. Go ahead, Anita. Tell us how long it took you to do this, what inspired it, and go from there.
All right, so Rants and Retorts. Your subtitle is How Bigots Got a Monopoly on Commenting About News Online.
Let me repeat that. How bigots got a monopoly on commenting on news online. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
And it really comes from my first experiences with reading online comments. I was resistant to it, resistant to technology, and one day I went below the story. And what I saw was shocking.
By below the story, for a lot of folks who don't jump up online, there's a section after the report and story has been put on the platform on the web, and below the story is room for comments, correct?
That's right. That's right. So I started reading them, and I really didn't like what I saw. And I'd call up the editor, and I'd say, this is bad. Do you agree, or am I just being thin-skinned? And they'd say, no, you're right. So we'll take it off. But that didn't last very long. It was really only a matter of like 3 days or so, and I realized there's no way that this would work. I couldn't keep up.
This was like back in what?
Back in 2008, starting in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there was no way that I could keep up with the sheer volume of the hate speech that was on there, particularly against African Americans. And really, my book focuses mainly on how it's affected African Americans and the news media, because that's the background that I come from.
Bingo. The news media, which is, this show is called what? Media Watch.
Media Watch. That's right. That's right.
So, Bob, you're our in-house online guru, and pick up on what Anita was saying about how virulent these comments have been and can be, so we can get her to give us some examples. Maybe do a little quote from the book.
Sure. I mean, what's really cool about this book is that you started the research in 2000, and I've been online a few decade before that, and it was timely in 1990. It was timely in 2000, and it's certainly timely today, given what the feedback we're seeing after the election. But when I first went on CompuServe, and as a joke, actually, I just posted an old CompuServe press release on my Facebook page, just as show how old I am. When I was on CompuServe, you'd get replies in the news forum to stories, and at that time, online was totally white, totally male, very few men of color, practically no females of color commenting down there. And so just what you say, you get a lot of the bias, you got a lot of the misogyny, you got a lot of the racism, but online people took it as natural. Everybody, we just old boys here, and we can talk like that. And of course I didn't like it. And but like I said, it was timely in the 90s. It's definitely timely now. So I'm glad your research is in print.
Thank you. I knew that actually whenever it was released, it was going to be timely. And it just so happened that within the election, it's even more timely.
Yeah, we'll get around to that because it's perfectly timed. Especially we're pre-taping the week of leading up to Thanksgiving. We air the following Monday. So what we're trying to do is put things in sort of perspective as opposed to dealing with breaking news. And of course, the whole brouhaha that's circulating in the total news media about social media and the role and impact it played in the last election. feeds into the topic that we're talking about, online comments. And Ray, you were mentioning something just that you came across today.
That one of the right supremacist groups, one of the alternate right groups.
Neo-Nazi, alt-right, whatever.
Whatever.
We don't use euphemisms on Media Watch.
Well, you see,
we call them neo-Nazis, right-wing racists.
but because
folk.
I can't remember exactly the name of the group.
All right.
Okay.
Anyhow, they were urging their members to open up Twitter accounts as black people, and creating what kind of chaos, I don't know. There were no explicit steps to this, but they wanted to do that to sort of throw a monkey wrench into the social, a bigger monkey wrench.
So did they give them any tips on how they could pretend
Not
to be black people?
not that I saw. It was just it was
Big,
no, but they
big
said no.
facetious
But
there.
one of the things that they did say was post lots of videos of twerking and rap videos and things like that.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
bad.
Anita, talk to us a little bit about. So we used 2008 as a jump-off point, which 8 years ago. What were some of the sites? If I'm sure they're in the book, so why don't you just run down a couple of the sites that, when you came across this stuff, you interacted with them, and what were their initial response?
Well, the Daily News is one of them, and they actually agreed. They did agree with what I was saying, because they were like, "This is just over the top here." So we're going to, it's busy, the industry had changed, and wasn't a lot of staff who were moderating comments. So, but if they were told, then they would go and they would remove comments.
And what about some of the black sites?
The black sites, I can't say that I saw as much racism on there, but it does exist.
I
So you're saying that they didn't really seek out the black sites to put
To
the racist.
post, right? It's mainly like
Okay,
the
the
mainstream
mainstream.
sites.
Mhm.
The mainstream sites is
And
what I found.
And I agree with what Eric said. We used to have, back in the day of CompuServe and whatnot, a lot of moderators. Now it's all automation. I mean, maybe an
Filters.
algorithm here or there, but nobody really looking at it unless, like you said, they get a complaint. Then somebody might reply.
an algorithm being a computer
Yes.
Filter.
a sentinel that's been programmed to look for negativity and bad stuff and then delete it.
Right. Or at least push it aside for moderation.
Right.
A built-in
Keywords.
software program.
Keywords.
Okay.
Mhm.
So talk to us a little bit about, since it started out with them not really having that many moderators, and with all the stuff just running rampantly, so biased, negative, homophobic, xenophobic,
Sexist. Sure.
whatever phrase
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
came across. Tell us a little bit about whether or not today any of this is getting any better, getting under control, or is it still Wild Wild West?
Well, I have to say, since 2008, I've definitely seen some changes, because they had to.
Mhm.
Editors were going home on Friday and coming back to work on Monday in a firestorm because of something that happened on the website, and people would just be like, "Oh my God, what is going on here?" And they couldn't keep control of it. So the filters, people would get through it. It'd be the N-word, this, or any other negative stereotype against black people, and they could get it through the filters. And so that's when you started seeing the evolution of software programs like Discus.
Explain to our viewers what Discus is as an example of the type programs that they put in place to try to curb this.
Right. Well, Discus is a software filter that a lot of news organizations use, and it does have the automatic filters, but then, even say the New York Times, they'll go in and they'll look, and they'll have humans, looking at it to see, what should be on there. But even that is kind of tricky too, because as humans, who's to say that we know which words are offensive to any given person? So that's where you get into that tangle. So, but I definitely applaud the changes, like the New York Times has, super user, or, you could now, like make a notation that, this needs to come off, and they'll look at it and maybe they'll take it off. I think USA Today, before they cut off comments, had done it, things like that. So I did see a progression, a positive progression, but it still didn't stop the craziness on the websites.
And just to be clear, a super user is a member of the public who, through use of the site, is like a trusted.
Exactly, a trusted commenter.
Yes. Who you know and you've identified, or at least you've developed trust in, so that when a complaint comes from that person, you take it pretty seriously.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now you're talking about the established media being more aware and more involving more censorship, but there's a lot more on the web now in terms of racist, bigoted, faux news. Now, this is fake news. Fake news. It's coming to a head now. People are noticing it. But why do you think that was so? It became so prevalent.
Because
no one was watching. I mean,
right. It's
that was
easy
it.
to do. It's been very easy to do, and the scary part is, it's being copied and cut and pasted and shared just so frequently that you start to believe it, and any one of us can be a victim of that.
And is that because most people today get their news from the internet as opposed to,
They do.
So this brings us to the perfect corner turn. Based on your reporting, based on your investigation, talk to us a little bit about how great an impact social media has been having since 2008, since you started this book, and what it's actually doing to the profession of journalism based on what we just saw in the last election.
Well, everybody can be a journalist. Everybody can call themselves writers now. And what's missing is the integrity part. That's what's really missing. So that's really scary. And that's why the whole citizen journalism thing, there's an issue with that.
I'm so glad you said what's missing, the integrity part, citizen journalism. I read a report. I was surfing the web. I needed to look up something because I needed to get an editorial contact in the New York Times. And I saw a headline, Anatomy of a Fake News Story and How It Goes Viral. The bottom line was, I'll use that example, what you just said about the lack of integrity about citizen journalism. Some guy was walking by where a demonstration against Donald Trump was taking place, I believe, in Austin, Texas. And the demonstrators were like around the corner, and he saw a bunch of buses parked in a parking lot. And he went, to himself, buses, demonstrators. Oh, this is not an organic demonstration. They bust these demonstrators in. Here are the buses. Now, he hasn't done one investigative thing. He hasn't gone to the bus driver or anybody. He just saw the buses, saw the demonstrators, and sent out a tweet. Not organic demo against Trump. Bust in. Here are buses. He takes a picture of these buses. That tweet goes out. Gets retweeted instantly by the Trump folk. Gets picked up on somebody's Facebook. By the time, before the day is out, it's already been tweeted a gazillion times, retweeted, etc. Now, some good news person says, well, let me call this bus company and find out what's going on. This looks kind of... The guy calls the bus company and says, we just came in for a convention of so-and-so and such, at such and such a convention. We don't know anything about demonstrators. The guy, he tries to put out the put a router. He gets to the guy who did the original tweet. The guy says, oh, well, I just thought for sure it was. So then he retweets, oh, fake, not correct. Well, he says, well, damage done, can be done, can be undone. And trust me, had legs, was gone across the total internet in the space of hours. And you couldn't call it back, even though the guy who originally tweeted it tried to call it back and other people tried to stop it. It was just a fact that they had been bussed into this demonstration. Fake news story. Some guy, not a real journalist, just decided he was going to do his citizen journalism bit, had no credentials, didn't know that you can't just pop things up because you think. You have to really investigate, nail down the accuracy before you put it out. And that's what evidently transpired in the course of this last election more times than we knew, than even good journalists were aware of.
Unfortunately, this election proved that no one cares about newspapers
Oh,
anymore.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Because-
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what Eric is just describing happens on both sides. I mean, people are doing that all around, posting it. It's so easy to post something on social media today, and people look at it and say, "Oh yeah, I've seen my friends do it." They'll post something. I look and see if that's real before I repost it, and I'm often saying to my friends, "Well, that's just not real. You needed to go one step further." And people don't seem to be willing to do that. They want it. They want their news instantly, and they're willing to believe anything that's posted in front of them, if they respect the source. And sometimes they don't even know what the source is.
There you go. What's the source? That's the question one.
And
Who and what is the source?
I think that's really dangerous, especially for
It's-
young people.
it's
Young
very
people in
dangerous.
school,
No,
they're
of
going
course.
straight to social media for their news. And they're
yeah.
not even, well, we know fact checking because that's
came
what we
out
do.
of
That's how we
journalism.
came. But they don't know that. And they're writing reports and, book reports and things like that based
them.
on
Stuff on
stuff.
the, on the
Yes,
web.
yes,
You
yes.
know what echoes through my head still? I mean, I haven't been a newspaper reporter for a while, but still echoing in my head is my old newspaper editor in Milwaukee saying, "How do you know that?" I mean, he would lean behind me, and that would always be the question. How do you know that is the way he said it, and you would have to take that extra step to either show him or make that extra call. And today, even on my blog, even on my whatever I do, even freelance, if I didn't double check it, it's not going in. I mean, no one's looking at me, but like you said,
That's right.
integrity forces me to make sure that fact is right. Don't care if it's in the press release. I'm going to make that extra call.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember about 3 years ago we were talking about the need for reporters to have to earn their money online by making sure they wrote stories with headlines that would get people to read, so that they'd have to get eyeballs to their site. Otherwise, because they got paid by the clicks or supposed to the word, if they didn't get a gazillion clicks, they weren't going to make any money. And so the good journalists were the new old school journalists, people trying to transition to the online style journalism, saying to themselves, well, this is a hard-hitting kind of investigative piece that's not sexy, but needs to be out there. How do I dress it up so it's going to get the clicks or the whatever? And for me, I think we predicted on the Media Watch show that we were discussing this, that it was going to spell the death of real journalism when people had to start doing bait and switch kinds of things, where you put a headline to get people to read your story just because it was a titillating, teasing kind of headline. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this speaks to what's actually morphed into fake news by people just, what was it they were saying? Somebody was saying some teenager in the Balkans or somebody else somewhere else who pretty much said they could easily make money by just pumping stuff up on Trump's website because it would get more clicks and more response. So what do journalists like yourself and you and myself, what do we do to, one, change the nature of the discourse, like Rants and Retorts? For me, it's getting totally out of hand.
It is out of hand, for sure. For me, this book is my way of fighting back. I just wasn't going to accept it, and I hope that other people don't continue to accept it. I don't think the experience of reading, or rather immersing myself in racist online comments for several years was a good thing. However,
That's poison.
It's changed me forever. It really has. And, it reminds me of why I became a journalist to begin with. And it was back in 1988, 1990, to write more positive stories about African Americans. And when I started reading these comments, it was like, oh my God, everything I've done means nothing. Because if you look at this and you read these comments, you really feel it. And, you know, maybe I am thin-skinned, but I think a lot of people agreed with me. You know, a lot of the people that I spoke to, it's like, yes, it is offensive and it really shouldn't be here.
Tell us a little bit about who you talked to for the book.
All right, I talked to a number of people. Mr. Anthony here, I
Thank
spoke
you.
to him. Let's see. Mark Pote from Southern Poverty Law Center, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, Councilwoman Lori Cumbo. Who else? Oh, a lot of psychologists. Monica, yes.
Anything you want to quote from those psychologists out of that book, feel free. Because it speaks to how mentally messed up some of these people are
Right.
to feel the need to put that kind of comment out in public and then hide behind it with some sort of anonymous name or non-name.
It's cool that you took that extra step to step out of just talking to journalists and editors and get the psychology side of things, because there is something going on there. And even as I read these post-election comments on these news sites, and I have to hold my stomach because some of the bile in them, and you wonder, okay, where are you and where are you sitting that you think you can freely say something like that? Are you writing this in public in front of a lot of people, or are you hiding? Are you at home? You know, just the mindset makes me wonder what makes people think they can get away with this type of chatter online, something they wouldn't say out loud, say at the library or Starbucks or in a restaurant.
Face to face, really.
Yes.
There'd be a lot more fights.
Yes.
I think.
Absolutely. I think knowing the psychology prevents you from having a knee-jerk reaction to what you're reading.
True,
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Actually, that reminds me of that story we did, about a month and a half ago, about some guy who was trying to browbeat this woman on a public transportation somewhere out in California. And she got up and punched him out.
Oh, right.
Good for her.
Which is why they hide behind it anonymously online, because they're cowards. They'd never say it to your face because they'd be fearful of getting decked.
Right, I can't put my hand exactly on one of those lines, but I'll read something that means a lot to me.
Go.
So from 2008 to 2011, a growing number of newspaper editors began monitoring comments more closely, frequently eliminating those they deemed offensive. Some organizations stopped allowing comments after a time or simply eliminated the option for readers to comment when they published specific stories that would cause obvious racial backlash. So ultimately, editors tried out, paywalls, rating systems, automatic word filters, user bans, specialized user status, which is what I was talking about before, and public views that show certain off-topic comments had been deleted. And those changes, though laudable, have not been enough. Online racist commentary is still pervasive. So in 2010, I stopped working on what eventually became Rants and Retorts. I had become depressed over the words that I had been reading every day for more than 3 years. And no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get the racist comments out of my mind, and I didn't like the way they made me feel. It is terrible when anger gives way to feelings of hopelessness from written words of hate, and no matter what anyone says, these comments can affect one's self-esteem. But I came back to the book in 2013 because I decided that the documentation of online racist comments is just as important as the Works Progress Administration's oral slave narratives in the 1930s. The online comments could serve as a written history of how some elements of society saw African Americans in the 21st century.
Good point. Excellent point. And actually, what you now make me want to turn to is, which we need to, because basically it's president-elect season, and the spectacle of the incoming president trying to supposedly build a functioning White House coterie, staffing, workers, advisors, whatever is unfolding before us. This pretty much cesspool of anti-black racist comments that you were wallowing in for quite a while.
Mhm.
Toxic poison.
Right.
This guy is one of his chief advisors, Steve Bannon, that Trump has hired, comes out of the Breitbart website, and Breitbart website is a cesspool of that kind of commentary. Correct?
That's right.
So, from your background as a journalist, knowing how appearance matters and substance matters even more, the substance of what this guy spearheaded seems to be what he would be bringing to the White House. I know people like Bernie Sanders are up in arms. What's the general public supposed to make of this, or what can they do?
And we have about 2 minutes.
2? No, we should have about 4 or 5, I would think. No, you might be right. Yeah,
Yes.
in a minute and a half.
Yes.
What should we be doing?
Yes.
I think the fighting back, what people are doing now, speaking up and protesting, I think that's a good part of it. No one should stay quiet about this because it's
No,
going
we
to
shouldn't.
affect all of us. And we have to get our younger people involved for sure because it really rests with them. And I think we're all a little bit terrified.
Bob, online comments, webmaster, editor, whatever role this guy was playing. I just need to dig into this just a little deeper because Bannon scares me, and his attitude
Scares the hell out of me.
and that kind of vicious, racist kind of stuff that Breitbart and these neo-Nazi people that just had their rally a couple days ago. Those people are now emboldened to think that, oh yeah, it's our country now. And,
Right.
and this guy was preaching, white people, we rule and we conquer. That's what we need to do. Something, I'm paraphrasing him, but he was at a conference, on a podium saying this.
And briefly, that's what scares me. I mean, I know that kind of language is going to be coming out. You'll have a lot more grist for your mill, I'm afraid. And with about 45 seconds left, it's scary.
I think this helped to start emboldening people to do this more.
To push back. All
Yeah.
right.
But, we should all.
Okay, well, look, this has been Media Watch. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
Anita Samuels, thank you for joining us. And
Thank you so
folks,
Thank you very
thanks
much.
EVT Educational Productions and Manhattan Neighborhood
One more
Network.
time.
Catch us on YouTube.
And Media Watch, EVT, and she's on Amazon.
Okay. Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And we'll catch you the next time, folks.